Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to review Dune Awakening's October patch. Now this patch is mostly a quality of life patch, so it has a lot of small quality of life fixes you can scroll through and see. But in today's video, I am largely going to cover the larger changes. Specifically, the Deep Desert, they have reworked all the loot tables there. So pretty much every unique is in the game at this point, and you can either find it in pretty much one of three places. I'm going to show you how to assess that, where to find things, and your best ways to loot different stuff. I also want to take a look at some of the combat changes. There's not much, but there's a couple things in here, and there's a lot of the community that is not very happy about that. But let's take it from the top. I'm going to hop in and go through some of the patch notes now. All right, for starters, and this just goes for DLC owners, they added the rest of the Duneman building pieces. All right, we originally just had these 4 over here. We have a bunch more now over here added in finally. People were not too happy. They only had these originally. They fixed this garage door piece specifically. All right, the trailer had the tread wheel come out and it could not get through this door. Well, now it can. All right, it can squeeze through. Tread wheel, still a pain in the ass to drive though, okay? That's the Duneman set just for DLC owners. Also worth noting, they changed where you can replace parts now too. So there's a replace feature here on the building piece. You could go up and select like a wide door here and just swap it in, and it just subtracts whatever parts and plops it in. Makes it very easy to just kind of upgrade your base. All right, so good stuff for builders there, not bad. Another big quality of life, we have massively increased bank storage. This is really for a lot of people. They want to take breaks with the game. Your slots are increased from 25 to 500, which is a huge amount. The volume's increased up to 30,000. Only real problem here is you can't take your ornithopter to town and kind of empty your base. If you're looking to pack up like a large base, you have no easy way to do it. I would still wait until the next patch maybe where they have an easier way, because your whole base, maybe it's like 20,000 volume or 10,000 volume. Maybe you have a lot of stuff to store. Not only are you going to have to take many trips with the ornithopter, they don't let you directly empty it. You have to like skirt through the auction house right now. It's just not a great setup. So they're on the right path. If you're looking to pack up your base and take a long break, maybe check back for the November update. They're part of the way there. All right, the research menu, you can do searches here, which is kind of nice. These are kind of the small quality of life things. If I go back to the patch notes thread, there is a boatload of just small fixes. I mean, these are just various little things that you're not really going to see, whether they're quest things or just like little bugs of just like getting in and out of your vehicle. A lot of stuff like that. Speaking of vehicle, we have the vehicle recovery system. So it's pretty much insurance or something like that. People ask for insurance for the first couple months when they are losing their vehicles. If your vehicle's lost, you can simply recover it now at a cost. A little bit of Solari, 15% max durability. I went in and tested this myself. Took my tread wheel out to the desert, pulling some wheelies until I was eaten. Now you'll lose everything on you, but once you respawn, you still have your vehicle tool. You can just go into it and say recover vehicle. The cost is very low, it appears. So even if you lost something like a carrier or something in PvP, I think the Solari hit is going to be very low. And the durability, not too bad. This really lowers the risk of almost anything going out to the deep desert. It's kind of sad. I appreciate the risk in this game. I also think the deep desert does need some levels of risk, and there was already ways to minimize your risk. But you could literally go out and farm spice with pretty much no gear on and even an ornithopter. And if you get caught and die, you can pretty much recover everything back at little to no cost. I think this was great as a way for people to recover vehicles that were lost to bugs. But overall, I don't think this is a great addition to the game. As far as durability hits go, vehicles aren't that bad and it's pretty easy. You just have to replace wings over time. It's more so your gear durability hits that really hurt you in this game. Which brings us to another huge one in this patch. Fixed durability exploit that allowed repairing items automatically when destroying a container. And also fix an exploit in regards to duping Solari in social hubs and trade posts. They tried to do this repair exploit a couple times, but it was causing problems of people losing their inventory when they were going across zone lines. Now I'll just say real quick with the duping, that'll be great if it's gone. There's been so many different dupes in the game. I know at a certain point they'll probably get rid of pretty much all of them. That'll be great. I don't know if that's today. I don't know if it's this patch. I don't know. But it's nice they're working on it. Let's talk about the repair one though, because overall, this technically is a really good thing. For those of you that aren't aware, you could pretty much just build a crate, you know, put items inside of it, and then you would destroy it, log out, log back in, and you'd get everything and it would be fully repaired. People were using this to basically take no durability hit on their gear. Now, it would have been good if they implemented a couple fixes along with this. There are some items that absolutely tear through durability. I don't mean suspensor belts, but specifically like the unique compactors. A compactor Mark 6, you'll use half of that thing going out to fill up an assault ornithopter. If you go out and use the spice truck as well, you'll tear through that. Certain weapons tear through their durability faster. Armor overall is pretty slow. That's not too bad. The part that really hurts you is when you die. If you have like a full set of uniques and different weapons and stuff and you take a death, it hurts that much more. Times 10 or 12, however many uniques you might have on you, it starts to add up to the point that it's more pain and suffering to go out and risk things and dying. Now in PvE, if you're a bit experienced, this isn't a big deal. This isn't where the problem's felt. The problem's going to be felt in PvP. People are just not going to bother engaging in certain fights anymore. And as a result, it's just going to lower the amount of potential fights people have. People are going to opt for fights where they feel like they have pretty much no chance of losing. And as a result, you just have less enjoyable skirmishes. If there's one fight, it might just be one and done. That kind of stuff doesn't really incentivize more PvP. Overall, there's a couple outliers they need to revisit on this durability change. Like I mentioned, like the compactor, certain things that just wear down too fast. But beyond that, I'm not happy with where it's at for PvP. I know there's a lot of people that aren't just going to bother risking their gear or just engage in some of the fights that were fun before to be like, hey, there's 2 of us, there's 4 of them, but hey, let's just give it a shot. You're just not going to bother doing that so much anymore. Overall, this just leads to a reduced amount of PvP in an environment that is already struggling to have pretty much any PvP. They also made another change to the vehicle backup tool. They didn't like that people were packing up their vehicles in midair. Like you could jump out of your ornithopter and just pack it up in the sky, and that was allowing people to just kind of do some crazy stuff in PvP. They made it so you can't get in your vehicle with the tool anymore. So now you just have to pull it out quickly and pack it up still. And nice try, QA team. Give it another go. All right, another really cool feature that I did log in and try out was the vehicle visibility distance. They have drastically increased up to 2 kilometers. So it's pretty insane how far you can look. I have a clip of it here during the stream. I was able to see somebody just fly into the horizon pretty much, and they are just this tiny, minuscule dot. This is really nice. I mean, it's quite impressive, I will say. They really put this in after seeing months of people being killed at spice fields, and if only I saw the ornithopter coming with rockets, I wouldn't have died. This will help in that if you keep your head in a swivel while farming spice. For the most part, I don't think people are dying as much because I don't think there's as many people in these servers currently. Now, that's not to take a stab at the game. I know they're working on stuff. And frankly, this is an amazing feature. This paired actually in conjunction with the fact that they got rid of all the little sections in the deep desert. It used to be broken into 9 grids on the map. You had different sections, and when you would hit them, there was quicksand here, and you'd kind of stutter and load over. The good thing about that is it makes the deep desert just this entire giant fluid space now. The bad thing is the deep desert doesn't hold as many people. So when you have larger servers like Harmony or PAX, they're pretty much the biggest populated PvP servers. They're now segmented into like 3 separate deep deserts, which is not great because it's scattering the population, and it just makes it more difficult for people to directly engage in fights on a map that's so big. They need to still find a balance here of what are the population numbers and what is the environment, and create something where guilds can kind of engage each other and have some decent PvP back and forth. But I will say, this view distance in conjunction with creating like a seamless environment, I prefer this. It's a step in the right direction. I would just still like a manageable space that people can kind of have guild versus guild battles and have a rule set that makes sense. I know they're not there, so I'm still giving them time to cook. I like that the engineering team was able to do this though. So we'll see what comes with the DD rework. These are very cool features though. They feel really good actually being out in the deep desert, flying around, not hitting these janky load screens, and not just having random quicksand separating things. Big thumbs up on the engineering side. The combat side is like, what are they going to do to actually create a DD rework eventually and have combined arms? We'll see about that still. All right, the deep desert rework on loot. Let's look at this. They have moved everything around. All right, so forget what you knew. Here is how it works. And I'm going to use some of the database websites here as well to kind of show you. You can find almost anything. There's a couple items I think they left out of the pool, but most of the items are pretty much in, especially the good ones. So instance deep desert loot. Loot in PvP areas is now instance, bringing it into alignment with other areas. Every player will now get their own loot in the PvP areas. All right, what they're talking about is the test stations here, if you do not know. So when you cross up into the north side of the deep desert, these ones, these are the PvP ones. These would drop 3 or 4 schematics before, and this was pretty much where all PvP would flow through. Whichever facility had kind of the best things that week, people would camp it, and that was that. So that has all changed now. For example, this week there are 4 different facilities here. They all have the same chance to drop the same thing. They will run under a PvP loot table. And I'll link the site down below. This is Method's site. There's another guy, Aiden, that runs this site. They're both great. They both pretty much pull data from the game files. But what this does is this kind of lets you know what's in here and what isn't. You can, at a pretty quick glance, see what's in the game and what's kind of left out. I'll give you an example. But we have the test stations. I will go down and show you the loot for them. The PvE ones are different. So they have a different loot pool. And they are, for the most part, kind of more PvE focused items. So they did a decent job with that. We have wrecks, and like, for example, there's only 2 here right now. I think these will have the same pool. I don't think there's like a because they're always PvP, the wrecks, whether they're in the top or bottom. So I think they're all going to share the same pool. Worth noting, if you don't know, there are caves, and this is what's kind of nice about Method's site, is you'll see these caves are a little larger. These ones have these little hidden boxes in them. They have their own loot table. They're very important, so you don't want to forget them. The last thing is the down ships. These are dropping now more frequently. They were kind of slowed down during that one event, but they seem to be back to a normal rate. You just kind of have to look for them. You can, of course, hear them when they're falling in. It is worth noting here that the loot table for these guys is different if the ship crashes up north versus if it crashes down south. Down south, you may not even get a blueprint down south. They have a chance to drop, let's say 0 to 1 maybe. I don't think I've ever got more than 1 blueprint. Whereas up north, they can drop, it seems, up to 3. I usually get at least 2 or 3 blueprints, which means the down ships give more blueprints than anything else. They're kind of raining blueprints. That is the fastest way to acquire them right now, is down ships. But again, they have their own loot table, but the down ship loot table is pretty good. A quick tip on finding and looting the down ships is their render range is exactly 1 kilometer. So I went and tested this out to see how far away I had to be to actually see them, and that distance is 1 kilometer. Additionally, when you come to loot a dropship, the schematics are always in the same spot. So when you see a down ship top down, locate the back side, and then you'll know the back right is where the schematics always are. Move in there, start there. You will never get schematics out of the other 2, but you can get other parts if you're interested. It is worth noting this loot is also instance, and you can bring your friends along, and you can load up a chopper pretty damn quick, or just split up in different scouts and scatter around the desert and try to locate drop ships. One last hot tip is you can learn blueprints out in the wild. You just have to be in a water sealed area of a fief that you own. Or in this case, you can plop a fief down and just be in your ornithopter, since that's considered water sealed, and you can learn them from within it. This is a very easy little trick if you're filling up on blueprints pretty quickly. So my tip for people looking for down ships, because I saw a lot of people asking in the Discord, is you have a 1 kilometer sight range to see them load, and each block is about, I think, 2.5 kilometers up and down. So if you fly, roughly around the middle, you'll be able to see everything within that area, and you could kind of circle and loop through like that. It's an easy way to go, hit the rounds and check for down ships, or, you could split up with other people and check your respective areas while they do the same. And beyond that, just listen for things. They make a hell of a loud noise when they're coming in. But those are the 4 different loot tables, technically 5 because there's 2 for testing station. Why the websites are useful and I would refer you to them is because it's easy since they're just pulling everything from the game files. So what you'll notice with the downships, it's got a pretty good loot table. It's small, but some very good stuff in here. The knife's great for PvE. It's even fine for PvP, so it's static needle. Disruptor pistol is all over in PvP. Everybody uses it. We have both shotguns here, which are both good. Seethe is a very nice weapon, and you have the executor set. So downships is a great loot pool, has really useful items for PvE or PvP. And the thing is, these blueprints are going to fill out very quickly, especially if you just watched what I showed you with downships. You'll be able to pick these things up very quickly, and you could go sell these things. As a result, any of these items will tank in value. These will be the easiest things to fill up right now, at least until they make a pass on patching. Testing stations, PvP, really good items in here. We got Young Sparky, the Holtzman Shield. I really like these. Power Harness, like must-have PvP. Halleck's Pick's great. Again, 2 great melee weapons. Dune Watcher's not bad for its poison. You will notice that, and what's good with these sites is they have different drop rates. Like the laser gun is 1%, meaning it will drop from these, but it's quite rare. Also included in here, we have Dart for Every Man, which is the best SMG that we have. The Spike Hilt Sword's a new sword. I haven't tried this yet. The other SMG's in here, but it's not as good as Dart. And then you have the Bulwark set. So there's your 2 heavy sets, Executor and Bulwark. All right, down in the PvE station, it appears to have a larger pool. I will say, though, it looks like the data is probably not exactly correct on here. I think when it says less than 1%, I think that means it's 0. Okay, because that's kind of where I used this website. And if we went to look up some items like, let's say, Young Sparky here, then we could go to this loot table and see for the PvE ones, it's kind of 0%. I think that's where this site's a little off. But this is all work in progress, and I'm sure the devs might update things, but these are pretty good. I usually cross-reference between the 2 of these. It seems to me Young Sparky is probably not. If you see less than 1%, it's probably not in there. Like Keen's Cutter Ray, probably not in there. So be mindful of that stuff. But the PvE one does have different PvE items. Has the SMG in here. We got the bigger buggy boot, which everyone loves. But I'll let you go through here. You can see what's in there. The caves have great items too. The focused buggy cutter ray is amazing. All right, gotta have it. People like the core leggings, the compact compactor, which breaks in 2 rounds, you can come get. There is some cool stuff in here. There's also some of the other still suit things for people that are looking to be completionists on all of their uniques. You can come in here. The Rex, really good items. Again, it's kind of like the down ships, perforator, disruptor, shell burster. The Rex are so easy to just get in and out of. Like, you could just go in, you're in and out in like a minute. All of these things are now instants. So you can find 90% of the items in here. It does look like they missed a couple. I went through my list and I was seeing like the Steady Assault booster, which who cares? I don't think people really are worried that they can't get it. But if you are looking to complete your thing, I will have you know there are some items currently missing in here still. Now, while 90% of them are in that list, there are a couple other ways. Other than the deep desert loot tables, you have Landsraad rewards. So, Landsraad rewards are holding, for example, Pincushion. You didn't see Pincushion in those tables because it's not in there. The only way you're getting Pincushion now, it looks like, is through here, whereas the Forge set was in the PvE loot table in the deep desert. There are specific items in the Landsraad that you're probably used to seeing. Those ones are still in here. I don't have that list in front of me, and I don't know if the websites do have that. What the websites do have is the last loot table. For the people that are completionists, the last thing to include is the vendors, the Landsraad vendors, okay? These are your weekly rewards you can get by completing these tasks here. Come, get the plasma cannon by turning in Mala pistols, right? But if you happen to win, like Atreides does every time on 90% of the servers, you can unlock one of the 4 Landsraad vendors. So the weapons vendor, these 3 are obtainable already in the deep desert. These 2 are not. This is the only place you can get these, and this is why I'm making note of these other ones. So like Ambition is a drill shot, single burst, and the Ancient Way, which has dramatically lost its value this patch. We have on the armor vendor, the circuit gauntlets you can actually get in the deep desert. I mark it because it's cheap, and it's a pretty good item to get if it does come up. The tools vendor includes a Sentinel belt, which sucks. I don't even think it does anything special. Young Sparky's not bad, kind of expensive. but all of these things can be acquired in the deep desert except the Sentinel belt if the collector in you wants to buy that. As far as the vehicle vendor goes, these two, the Sandcrawler schematics, can only be acquired at the vehicle vendor. These other two are now pretty accessible and pretty easy to acquire in PvE areas in the deep desert. So that about covers it up. All of the uniques are pretty much in the game. Again, some of these are definitely left out. There's like probably 4 or 5 items, maybe tops, I think that they might have just missed, and you know, they'll probably add them. My overall thoughts though on this is that blueprints are going to, for the most part, drop in value. Now the ones in downships and shipwrecks specifically are very easy to acquire, very low effort. Same with the caves. These will all come down. The ones that will kind of have a bit more value still are these test station ones, because they still just require the effort to go through. You have to clear them, and you're only getting one schematic out of them. I personally don't like that. I still like that we actually had PvP in the deep desert by funneling people towards it. This has been a point of contention I've seen in Discord. On one hand, PvPers are upset because they're not going to have as much PvP. It's more of a cat and mouse and people just kind of coming and going. You don't really have any kind of focus activity that is naturally putting people at odds in the deep desert right now. However, a lot of the people still playing the game are a PvE crowd, and they're telling all the PvPers to go fist themselves, and they're a bunch of reefers anyway. So overall, I don't think this is actually a terrible update, but the problem is, again, like some of the other changes, this just kind of wounds PvP a bit more. I like both parts of this game, its PvP and its potential for PvP, but it continues to dwindle in its ability to provide something for it. What the Deep Desert rework will look like, I'm not really sure, but how they structure it around a system like this, it seems to only be taking away the opportunity to have more PvP. Alright, if you've made it this far, we have combat section. It's a small little block, like half the page, but I like to think I've saved the best for last. I love covering the combat stuff. I'm going to dive into that. But you know, I'm a pretty simple person. I see all the quality of life updates. I'm cool. Let them cook. Let's progress. I see unnecessary combat changes. Real shit, dude. I'm kicking into gear and we're going to analyze this stuff. I'm not too happy with some of this. Alright, first bullet, we have the rocket launcher. Can now lock on characters again because it couldn't last patch, but it also requires a target lock before being able to fire, both against characters and vehicles. This essentially means you can no longer fire rockets. You have no target locked. You have to lock on a target, and until that target lock's complete, you cannot fire. The thing that I don't really understand about this is that the rocket launcher is not doing that much damage to somebody that has shields up. For example, we could test it right now. I have 3 light pieces on me and 2 heavy. The 2 heavy have a baseline of concussion resist, but the point is I'm not really geared towards concussion resistance, which does matter against rockets because they play by different rules. I have 205 health. Let's go ahead and take a rocket shot, okay? Alright, how much does that do to me? 9 HP. 9 HP isn't too bad, so, you know, that would take 23 rockets to take me down. So, what is the big deal with rockets? What is the urgency to nerf them? I mean, they stagger you, but the devs already put something in the game to resist that. So you already had the option to include stagger resistance in here. So if you already have the ability to stop the stagger, the rocket itself doesn't do much damage, why are we nerfing rockets all of a sudden? And for those that care, I did test the lock-on range. It is just under 145 meters, let's say 144. You can see here where it locks on and falls off. That is pretty much the lock-on range that they've decided to work with. I just don't really get the change to rockets. I didn't really use them. In fact, I think the place they're most useful was in PvE. But I don't know. I'm not going to get too hung up on the rocket launcher change. It just doesn't seem to make sense. It does essentially make them pretty useless, I feel like. They were a good functional AoE weapon that had the option to not really sit there and slaughter people en masse, but they were an effective means of staggering and good self-defense against ornithopters. They've really tightened the range down, and requiring this lock-on and not just allowing dumbfire, it just seems nonsensical to me. Let's move into the one that everybody is talking about on Discord and on Reddit. There are a lot of, I'm quitting, I am done with this game after this change. And I'd like to go into this in a little detail. This is really hitting melee players here, okay? And I'm a melee player myself. I run kind of a hybrid mix, but I lean into melee first. So we have a couple things to talk about, mainly 2 skills. Let's get into it. They modified dash stamina costs while affected by Suspensor Blast and Crippling Strike debuffs. So dashing or dodging while being affected by these will now cost 33% more stamina baseline instead of the doubling, 100%, bringing this ability in line with other effects. I don't know what other effects you mean. I don't know what that means. I don't know how you're measuring that, but okay. Crippling Strike will no longer slow the character to a crawl. Instead, sprinting is blocked, so the player can only walk or dash while affected. So you can still dodge in it and suffer the, extra costs, but there's no sprinting, but it doesn't slow you to a super crawl. Now we have the change duration. Crippling Strike is 7.5 from 7. And then we have Suspensor Blast debuff going to 5 seconds instead of 6. They adjusted player stam regen as well to 1.0 seconds from 1.2. Not a huge change, but a significant one. And these are all the ones that tie together into a bundle to impact melee. Now let me preface this by saying, before I jump in a little bit to this, there is pretty much 2 functional builds in PvP and combat, and frankly, it sort of goes the same for PvE. You have the ranged build, the trooper build really is what you want to call it, and then you have melee. And you can kind of mix in a hybrid of melee and like a bruiser type play. That's what I was doing, focused on like shotguns, not so much focused on disruptor pistol. If you had 200 points, you could do it all. Like you technically could, but it's a matter of like, what did you want to lean to and what skills did you have on bar? For the most part, in PvP, a lot of the meta has boiled down to like, there's about 4 relevant techniques and maybe about 4 to 5 relevant skills for people. And as far as melee went, you were not pulling off anything without using Crippling Strike. Crippling Strike was your go-to. It is how you burn stamina on people and you were able to close kills. Now, as far as the 2 metas go, you pretty much had range dominating outside and melee was pretty strong inside, but range was still very relevant indoors. Overall, when you had larger numbers, if you have a bunch of guys with guns, it's better than a lot of guys with knives and swords because you can just sit there and focus on targets and take them out. All in all, the meta is basically leaning towards range and has for some time now. For at least like the past month, range is the go-to. People are either floating around in the sky using disruptor pistols or they're kind of moving in with SMGs. One or the other, they're shield breaking more than they're meleeing. Does that mean melee wasn't in there? No. Melee was in, depending on the server, depending on the environment and the fights. People played melee and they mixed in. That's kind of what you want. That's kind of what was great about this game, is it has a mix of decent and unique movement in conjunction with having ranged and melee combat. Now we have this patch where seemingly it appears a developer was killed by a melee player and has made a knee-jerk reaction. Because that's kind of the only way I can look at this and say, this makes sense. What bothers me a lot with this is this was not on the PTS. A lot of the changes you're seeing in here were on the PTS. There are people in the Discord, including myself, that go on and test changes in the PTS. This was not. They just threw this in and it's almost like, hey, we know better. And I'm not saying that devs need to explain themselves, but if you're doing stuff and you're actually negatively impacting one of the 2 meta play styles of this game, and one that was already a bit weaker than the other, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Especially when there are so many skills in this game, like heavy weapons. Why don't you guys go do something there? You rename this technique to heavy weapon agility. Let me tell you, no one's ever going to put this technique on bar. It's insane. It's just not going to happen. There's too many good technique slots, okay? There are so many skills we can go through here. So many trees, like the voice or something. There's just various skills. Eye of the Storm. There's all these skills. Poisons. Like, these things don't make sense. They don't even fit in the game. And rather than, like, brainstorming, like, you don't even have to put them in this patch, but to go through and negatively impact some of the handful of things that are relevant in the game and just solidify one of the 2 playstyles, in this case the trooper playstyle, has just been strengthened, and it just doesn't really make sense. Now, one of the things I do on my videos, if you haven't seen, is I do test stuff, okay? And it's fortunate that I was able to test this before they implemented the patch. I've seen a lot of chatter again on Discord and Reddit, so let me clear up something for a lot of people that aren't well informed, apparently including the devs who didn't know this either. Crippling Strike was never doing what it said it did, okay? It was supposed to double your stam costs. Okay, this is in the pre-patch. Before the patch happened, I ran these tests. Your stamina base cost is 40. So if you do a dodge, it costs 40 stamina. If you wear some more light armor, this will cost less. If you wear some heavy armor, it costs a little more. Now, if you got hit with a Suspensor blast, it doubled your stam cost. So now it would cost 80. Now, if you got hit with a Crippling Strike, though, it was costing 107. Nobody talked about this, all right? I do videos and stuff, so if you've seen them, you knew about it, but I constantly see it referenced, and incorrectly so, and this is quite a difference to have 80 and 107. If this was a heavy armor user, this would be substantially higher. It'd be like over 125 stamina. The point being is Crippling Strike was overperforming. There are lots of bugs. I have an hour-plus video of combat bugs, and none of that shit's in this patch either, by the way. So if we're gonna go out of our way to over nerf things rather than just kind of fix things and make sensible changes, I don't know what the hell we're doing. Now, these two could also stack last patch. So somebody could come and try to melee you, and you could hit them with this and immediately follow up with a Crippling Strike. And at this point, you're now putting them under like a double cost penalty. That could happen before the patch. They did fix that. You can no longer stack these two. Now, moving into the future here and testing these on the live client now, these are working as a state. So 40 stam, now being hit with Crippling or Suspensor Blast, they no longer stack, so that's fixed, and they now increase your stam by about 33% as they stated. But this isn't too much, and honestly, there probably are people overreacting a bit. Like, this is what Crippling Strike now feels like. It is a limp, it slows you down and everything. I think the problem here is this. Both skills are different, so let me split them apart. I'll start with Crippling Strike here. Its cooldown is 20 seconds, its stam cost is 30. 30 is a decently high stam cost, okay? A dodge is going to cost you 40 stam. I'm increasing your dodge by 13 stamina by using a stun ability that costs 30. What I'm getting at here is the difference in cost, like how much stamina I'm adding, how much pressure I'm actually applying as a melee, isn't that much higher. What's nice is it does slow you, it keeps you in range, but the dodge range, even when you hit somebody, it used to be punishing. Like if I was hit with this, I could only half dodge. See how I can full dodge? So he still has to then dodge to close that gap and get even closer to me again. So that can take a little bit of time away, but really it just creates an easy distance, which allows me to get in a position to successfully parry. Or the way you counter Crippling all the time is the moment you're hit, you can just turn around and flying knee or Shigewire, which is what a lot of people do. And alternatively, the easiest thing to do, the most cost-free thing to do, if you're hit with one of these, is to just press X. Okay? Or what I mean to say is Suspensor Blast, which is part 2 of our problem. And when I compare these two skills, it's actually insane. Okay? Suspensor Blast has a cooldown of 20, but is tied to Battle Hardened. Okay? And Battle Hardened goes up to 30% ability cooldown. Like the fact that nobody's touching the trooper line, like Shigewire's cooldown is insane. You have this skill refreshing at like 5 seconds with Battle Hardened in conjunction with Suspensor Blast. Just these two together with this technique is insane. It's absolutely insane, and it solidifies such a strong point for the trooper playstyle. But I'm going to be honest, Suspensor Blast is such a crutch. It is the biggest crutch that has always been in the game. As someone that runs around playing melee, you can sit here and piss out your stam all you want, get hit, and then just be like, oh, it's good. Did I burn all my stamina like an idiot? All good. I got Suspensor Blast. Suspensor Blast, that buys me enough time, turn around, escape. Cool, reset. And you can just keep doing it indefinitely. You can always use this goddamn skill, and it costs nothing. Short cooldown has a 30% reduction technique we can apply to it. Goddamn thing does damage too. Look at this. It actually does damage to the player through the shield too. Stupid. All right. Slows the target, stuns them. Not even listed on here, but does the same goddamn dash cost multiplier penalty. Like, this is a self-defense tool, and I get why it's in the game. You put it in the game so that if people are getting pushed over by melee, they have a skill, but it's such a get-out-of-jail-free card. The fact that it can be used while you're stunned, while you're staggered, you can break anything with it, and it costs nothing. Just those two things alone, the fact that it costs no stamina, and the fact that it will break you out of animations, like that's already, it should have a long ass cooldown. It's such a unique case skill. Like if you're stunned, you can't use any of these other skills in the game. But this one, which not only breaks you free, doesn't cost stamina, stuns the target, stuns AoE by the way, stuns everyone around you, also slows them, also stam penalty. It's such a crutch skill. So that part's insane to me. And you can't aggressively use this as a melee. If someone's shooting at you, I'm not gonna run up and Suspensor blast you, okay? If that person just naturally backs up, they're gonna get away from me. That's why Crippling Strike is in play and melee need it, because it pushes towards the target to kind of advance them. So Crippling Strike should get some changes. Now again, as I showed you guys, it was overperforming before, all right? I don't even know if it needs to go back to the 100% increase, but I think this is too much. To go from this to this is pretty wild, because you didn't just do that by itself, you also tighten the window of stam regen. So instead of taking 1.2 seconds to start regenerating stamina, it's shorter. Like the combat developer, I'm sorry, dude. Whoever beat the shit out of you on a melee, I'm sorry for what you had to go through. But this is not it. This is not what a solution looks like. It doesn't really make sense. You can't make that many changes, not throw it on a PTS and just be like, that works, that makes sense. Because in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, range was already stronger and you just made it stronger. So my TLDR is do a couple things with Crippling Strike, okay? I would suggest this. Put the dash cost multiplier up to at least 1.5, okay? And that's not even much more up there. But what you should probably do, if you're going to have it that low, is you have to change the stam cost and the cooldown. Both of them. Now the problem in doing that is changing those two values is when you're spiced up, the lower that cooldown is, the more dangerous things are, okay? Just like if you're spiced up over here, your Shigawire has like a goddamn 2-second cooldown, all right? And Suspensor Blast, instead of being 20 seconds, gets reduced down to like 14 seconds with Battle Hardened, and then that gets cut in half to be like, oh yeah, it's like a 7-second Suspensor Blast cooldown. Costs no stamina, by the way. Like, how the hell are you supposed to kill somebody like that outdoors? They just fly indefinitely. Because I've tried to do it as a melee, and it's absolutely insane. All in all, Crippling Strike is the one that really needs a rework, and the long-term solution here is maybe rethinking the fact that the entire game's melee system hinges upon Crippling Strike, and it's really the fact that it has the stam cost modifiers, that you have to choke out stamina in this game to actually do melee damage, and that all the other things are just not useful, okay? Inspiration's not really going to help me. Eye of the Storm makes me just die, okay? I spin around just to die. These techniques, god damn it, do they not work, man? These only work when your shields are down. Who's reckless lunging when their shields are down? Like, there's so many skills in this game that deserve a rework instead of going through and knocking down things that are actually functioning and are not broken. And in fact, there are things over here in the trooper tree that are broken that I've reported, such as a tractor field. So next video, I think I might just put out a little build on a tractor field and showcase again. I'll showcase again how and why this skill is broken, why a lot of people are using it in the meta, and how you can actually maximize the effectiveness of this while you sit around waiting for maybe a melee fix to come in. And overall, Suspensor Blast, I don't know what you do with it. I know this is in here so that ranged have an option to shake off and push melee off of them. I don't mind as a melee player knowing that I have to be wary of it and time how I pursue them and back out of range of it. I just think it does too much. Like, why does it actually have the stam cost penalty? I don't think it should. Like, doesn't it have enough? Doesn't it do enough things? And frankly, its cooldown should be significantly longer, especially when you have a skill like goddamn Battle Hardened in the game. Because Battle Hardened is just too damn effective of a technique in PvP, I must say, especially when you have Shigiwire and Suspensor Blast buffed by it. It is just a very effective skill. So there you go. That's my take on the October patch. There are a lot of really good quality of life patches. There are some cool stuff from the engineering team. I didn't see much here from the combat team, and what I did see, I'm just not crazy about. I know it's going to take till like Q1 to like have a reworked Deep Desert, but by the time we get there, you guys could move through and rework things. Make flamethrowers the AoE weapon if you don't want rocket launchers to be it. Like, go through and give certain weapons useful things. Give certain skills an effective way to be relevant again. But don't go through and just make changes to things that are already working and just... You've taken away things like Source of Power got nerfed, and people don't even really use this anymore. It actually had a place that could be kind of used indoors in fights, but it's just kind of stupid now. There are such over-the-top changes, and I don't know what the combat team's doing because they're not explaining it. They don't talk to the community, and they don't talk to the people that actually do PvP and PvE at a higher level, people that know combat. It just seems like they're just like, hey, this sounds like a good idea this week. But yeah, other than that, I look forward to continuing to follow Dune Awakening. I love so much about this game. I do hope the best for it, and I actually would love to see a good combat atmosphere for it in the future. In 2026, I'd like to be able to return this. I know there are tons and tons of guilds that came here with their friends and they liked both aspects of the game. Some of them liked a lot of the PvE, survival, building, farming things, and some of them really wanted to get involved and do some PvP. And the atmosphere obviously needs to be reworked, but the combat is actually pretty good in this game. You just need to facilitate and continue to move towards, I don't know, do the combined arms thing. You guys said combined arms, people can still get one shot out of a buggy. Why don't you guys work on that next patch or something, or work on some of the other skills that just aren't used? Or if nothing else, talk to some of the people that actually take the time to test your game, because those people in the private test server on the Discord, they've done a ton of work, they do a ton of labor, and you guys don't even consult them and use a resource that's right in front of you. So this is my outcry to the Funcom team. There's a lot of good things here. I look forward to seeing what they keep doing. Let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure you subscribe, and look out for a video coming that might do a lot of damage while your melee doesn't work. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy, and thanks for watching.